All right, back to this story now for a moment. House Republicans now accusing the top IRS official in charge of enforcing Obamacare penalties of breaking the law, that she may have broken the law herself. Members of the House Oversight and Government Reform Committee claim that Sarah Hall Ingram has been giving confidential tax information of individuals to the White House. During a fiery back and forth yesterday, Ohio Congressman Jim Jordan pushing Mrs. Hall to explain several 2012 emails. Watch this.
Just look at that email real closely and see where all the black print is. See where all the where it's all blacked out. There's a number written on each of those blacked out areas. And what is the number written there? Can you just say for the record what the number is?
For the release of the document.
No. What's the number?
6103.
6103. So someone at the IRS decided this was confidential taxpayer information. And when we got these documents, when the committee got these documents, they said, oh, you know what? That's information you're not allowed to see, committee. But yet it was fine for you to communicate to the White House and release that information and give that information.
Wow. That is something. Dan Henninger joins me now, deputy editorial page editor at the Wall Street Journal. Dan, I mean, is that possible? Could the IRS have been sending confidential individual personal income information to the White House to possibly get their approval or understanding on something that had to do with what they were doing, in terms of political involvement? Possible?
Well, yeah, Martha, from the beginning of this IRS scandal, the question has been the one you just posed. Is it really possible that the Obama White House could have been handling sensitive, confidential IRS material in this way? There are severe penalties. You can go to prison for 5 years. And I think it's becoming clear that the answer is yes, that they could indeed have done that. Because to me, it's clear now that this is probably the most highly partisan, politicized White House that we have seen in a long time. Much more so than the highly politicized presidencies of Bill Clinton, Richard Nixon, or Lyndon Johnson. I think this is what this White House does all the time. Now, back when they were involved with the IRS material, the idea was that they were going to take down the Tea Party, the 501 groups that the Tea Parties were associated with, and indeed that did happen. A lot of these Tea Party groups, under pressure from the IRS, just quit.
Gave up.
Yeah. Now let's roll it forward. We're now in the middle of negotiations, so to speak, between the White House and House congressional Republicans over the shutdown and the debt ceiling. And it has been clear that I think the reason the White House has been refusing to really come forward and actually negotiate is because they want to put the Republicans in a disadvantageous position vis-a-vis next year's off-year elections in 2014. And indeed, the Gallup poll yesterday said approval for the Republicans has begun to fall below 30%. And I think it's all politics all the time for the Obama White House.
You think back to the quote that was on the cover of the Wall Street Journal a few days back from a White House official who said, we're winning.
Yeah.
I mean, that's telling.
That was
a
Freudian slip. That was very telling. And now this morning, the news is that perhaps the White House is going to sit down. They won't call it negotiations, but for a conversation with a group of Republicans from the House to talk about a very short-term extension of the debt ceiling in return for, the Republicans think, some give on entitlement reform or tax reform. I'll tell you, Martha, I don't see it happening. I think they've got to worry about the White House setting up a Trojan horse with this kind of a deal, because in the past I've seen no evidence of the Obama White House actually negotiating in truly good faith over such big issues as this. It's all politics.
Administration that I can remember that we haven't seen that ultimately happens, that they do eventually want things to get done. But I do want to get back to Sarah Hall Ingram here just for a moment, because the suggestion from what I've read on this is that the issue that they were discussing between the IRS and the White House had to do with groups that were pushing for religious liberties, for companies perhaps like Hobby Lobby, who wanted to be exempted from Obamacare because they didn't believe in covering birth control. So if that is the case, if you have this individual sending information about that company or individuals related to that company to the White House to discuss whether or not they should be able to get these exemptions, Is this woman going to be, are there charges that would be considered against her? As you said, that is a federal offense, is it not?
Yeah. These people run significant risk. There's no question about it. Lying to Congress as well can carry 5 years in prison. So you see how careful she was in discussing with them. When officials come up and testify before Congress and saying their memory has failed them, that's usually a pretty good idea that they are close to a very red area that they don't want to get into. And again, recall the problems with the Hobby Lobby, but the Catholic Church, remember, objecting to having to give out that kind of information under Obamacare. They got into a huge battle with HHS over that. And HHS could have negotiated with the Catholic Church. Instead, they pushed back because they were getting in the way of implementing Obamacare. And again, this is what I mean by just an intensely, highly politicized White House operation.
Dan, thank you so much. Always good to talk to you.
Good to talk to you, Martha.
It's easy.